What's up? I'm back, the man behind the mask, and you're watching the Choujigen game Neptune vlogs. Remember, this is a review, not the episode. Hopefully, YouTube's content ID bullcrap won't take this episode down. So, we just got episode 5 through. What's been going on in this episode? How did I feel about it? First of all, comedy-wise, not the biggest episode on comedy. Even less comedy than the previous episode. But it still has its funny moments. But that's not the focus of this episode. This episode of Neptune focuses on action. This is a shit gets real episode, alright? Things are going down. Big time, alright? It's going down and it's full blast. Alright, this episode, I didn't even think that Neptune could pull off suspense. But they managed to do it, so kudos to this episode. Last series I expect to give me some suspense would be Hyperdimension Neptunia, but it did it. It pulled it off successfully. I'm shocked as everyone else. That's awesome. So, what's going on in this episode plot-wise? Alright, plot-wise, taking place directly after where the previous episode left off, like 2 seconds after where the previous episode left off. You know, Nepgear and the others are all heading towards the giant anti-crystal pyramid site where the CPUs are being held. They managed to make it there, and Nepgear fights R4 straight up. R4 transforms, and when she transforms into like this dark goddess state, she is able to steal the moves from all the... Hold on a minute. Great, now the editing for this video is going to be a hassle because Camtasia doesn't like MP4 files, or MOV files, I mean. Not MP4, MOV. Had to deal with some annoying asshole stomping around outside my room. Back to topic. What was I talking about? The plot, right? The plot. Alright, the plot of this episode. What's been going on plot-wise in this episode? Alright, so Nepgear and all the others are heading towards the giant sphere thing where all the goddesses are being held. And Nepgear is having a one-on-one brawl with R4, who has powered up and become a goddess. Apparently in this continuity, R4 isn't a goddess already. And she powers up, she fights Nepgear one-on-one, and she is able to steal the powers of all the CPUs trapped inside of the anti-crystal, giving her abilities like Nep's cross-combination attack. Directly ripping off cross combination, and then ripping off Blonde's attack. I don't know how to... Something Trumb. I don't know how to pronounce it, alright. Ripped that attack off, then ripped off Noir's attack. Later on in the fight. All throughout this fight, you know, black hands are rising up out of the anti-crystal pyramid and trying to grab all the CPUs and drag them down into the depths, you know, and this is supposed to be how CPUs die in this series. So the hands, after sucking out all of their share energy, the hands start dragging them down, pulling them down into like this black goo slime stuff. While they're inside of that, they're supposed to suffocate and just die like that. Meanwhile, R4 gets the last bit of their powers, then their share energy gets converted into anti-energy, which is what powers the anti-goddess transformation that R4 took. While all this is happening in R4's fight with Nepgear, the other CPU candidates are starting to transform as well by finding their own resolve. You know, with Ram and Ram, it was really easy to transform for them. All they had to say is, R4's a bitch. Let's go kick her ass. And they gained the ability to transform. That was it. That's all it took for them to transform. then then Uni, she had a badass way of transforming. You know, she's sniping R4. She's nervous. Her trigger finger, while she's busy sniping her trigger finger is starting to twitch a bit. She's unable to pull the trigger while she's scoped in. She can't pull the trigger. She don't know what's stopping her from putting the trigger. She's worried about Noir, but she keeps wondering, like, why am I still worried about her? And then finally she just said, screw it, starts shooting her gun. Shoots down a bunch of these black orb things that R4 is using to shoot all the other CPU candidates. Shoots through like 3 of them with one shot, causing them to just break apart. And during her like 3rd shot, she just like transforms in the middle of shooting. She had an awesome transformation, and her voice completely changed. I don't know if it was like this in the Japanese voice-acted versions of the game, because I listened to the English voice acting in the games, and her voice is exactly the same when she transforms, but maybe it's different in the Japanese language version of it. I don't know. This anime is my only link to the Japanese version, because I play the games all in English. So, getting back to the point. So, all the CPU candidates have transformed now. They're all going against R4. They're beating the crap out of her. Then she turns around, turns the table, starts beating the crap out of them. Meanwhile, Iffy and Kampa are sneaking up onto the anti-crystal. And while sneaking up on the anti-crystal, they like see Pirachu, whatever, you know, still don't know how to pronounce his name. They see her, and I gotta cut again. It's a busy day in this house, apparently. Alright, finishing up. So there was during the fight between the CPU candidates and R4, I noticed this thing like a broken, dead PSP, gigantic PSP, sitting on the ground behind Neptune during the fight. I don't know, that just caught my attention for some reason. It's probably on account of me having two PSPs. I guess. That caught my attention. During the fight, they kept fighting. No, eventually they were starting to lose. They were losing morale. All the CPUs got sucked into the black mist. You know, Neptune inside the black mist thought she died, but no, she wasn't dead yet. She was still receiving share power. Eventually, all the CPU candidates just get pissed off. They brutalize R4, you know. The twins... first, she gets shot in the face by Uni, then the twins do this giant ice crystal spinning top thing, which comes and smacks her dead in the face, knocks her right into the anti-crystal, and then, after all that, like, Neptune shows up right in front of her, like, point blank in the face, points a gun blade at her, and then just fires a shot point blank. The shot was so awesome, they had to turn to slow motion. It's like, slow motion of the blast just coming towards R4's face. She's like, that was awesome. This episode is amazing at action, and it actually proves that Neptunia can pull off suspense without turning into Final Fantasy. I'm listening to you, Mark, too. So yeah, there's that going on, and then after the fight's over and everything, the CPUs are out of the crystal. Everyone's wondering, like, where are they? They're not here. There's this giant crater in the ground because, you know, Neptune just shot a nuke point blank into R4's face. There's like a huge, gigantic crater right there. Nobody knows where the CPUs are, and they're like, look up. The CPU, you know, Neptune's like, Neptune, look up. And they look up, and oh, there they are. So then they go off happily ever after, and now all the CPUs are no longer dressed in their original suits. They're now dressed in the Neptunia Victory outfits. In case you can't tell, I'm kind of a fan of Neptunia, if the soundtrack didn't give that away. So that happens, and then stuff's resolved, and then everyone's shares are pretty much back to square one to what they were before this whole series started. You know, like right before, like the first episode, everyone shares back to normal, you know. But Planet Neptune's shares are still in a steady decline because, you know, people didn't have that much high hopes for their CPU anyway back at Planet Neptune. Nep is kind of lazy, to be perfectly honest. Neptune is kind of lazy. Just a tad. So that was this episode. It was probably my favorite episode, most likely. I'd probably rate this as my favorite episode. The action was awesome. The ending bit was funny, even though it was a joke stolen directly from the game. You know, in the games, the joke was like, Uni, how come you go down 2 cup sizes when you transform? And like, you're flat just like the rest of us. The twins are like that. And Nepgear's like looking at her, she's like, Uni, why did you just go down 2 cup sizes? Funny joke. In the game, it was pulled off a little bit better, but it's a funny joke here. So, that was this episode of Neptunia. I'll check you guys out next week. Hopefully, YouTube won't content ID strike me. And what am I messing with right here? This is Starbucks. Because I do this is me. I have attention issues at times. I can keep conversations going, but attention issues kind of cause stilts in that. Signing out.